I'm never looking at the clock like, when is this class done? I'm so in the moment, so present, and that's how I want work to feel. I never thought, and I remember telling my friends this, I was like, did you know you can go to work and feel better after? Because I had always gone to work and felt worse after.
Welcome to Gift Led, where we unpack how our unique gifts are the key to a sustainable, impactful career and a meaningful life. I'm Tara Alprin. This week on the show, I got to have a conversation with Maryssa DeBonee, who is a full-time yoga teacher out of Salem, Massachusetts, which is somewhere I got to live at some point. Anyway, we got to have a conversation about her background as a food scientist and her transition into being a full-time yoga teacher recently. It was a really interesting conversation, and I have a little caveat or side note. She did say up front before we hit record that she thought it'd be valuable for me to offer up my insight as opposed to just purely interview her, and I accepted the offer. So in this interview, we get to hear a lot of her insight and her experience, which I think is so valuable to hear somebody transitioning from an industry that really worked to support people and to help them sustain their lives into the yoga industry, which has a lot of growth points needed. So we get to hear a lot from her, but we also get to hear some from me and my experience of the yoga industry. So we cover the topics of all her joys and also her struggles making this transition into being a full-time yoga teacher. We talk about the difference of the support and feedback that she got in her food science job and kind of the lack of that in the yoga industry and what that feels like. We talk about the need for more vision and leadership in the yoga industry. We got into this question of why do nurses and farmers make livable wages, and why is that not an option that is clear for yoga teachers? And then we also got into how money simply shows value and why yoga teachers are getting it wrong and staying stuck, scraping by, even though we provide so much value. So I really hope you enjoy this episode. There's lots of good food for thought. I hope it inspires you. Okay, welcome, Maryssa. Welcome to the show. I am so excited to hear more about your background and how it's translated to your new career in yoga. So thanks for being here. Thanks for being up for this conversation. Let's just begin with who are you and what's your background in corporate and what was that like? And what had you decide to start teaching yoga instead?
Thank you, Tara, so much for having me. My name is Maryssa. I have been teaching yoga for 3 years now, and I wasn't always a yoga teacher. My dream ever since high school was to be a food scientist, and I went to college for food science. I even did my master's in food science. I got my dream food science corporate job, and I was like, great, that was easy. And then I found yoga. And I was a student for a few years before I really felt called to teach. When I did my master's in food science, I did it while I was working. And when I finished my master's, I was like, gosh, I actually do have a lot of time outside of my 9 to 5. What do I want to do with it? And the truth was, I wanted to do my yoga teacher training. So I did that, had the best time. And then I started teaching 1 class a week, and then it was 2 classes a week. And I thought, wow, what a great little side hobby. I thought of it more as a hobby than a side hustle because I was really lucky with the corporate job that I had. It paid super well. I enjoyed it for the most part. And I had this fun yoga hobby on the side. But as I continued teaching, I kept wanting to add more classes. I did an additional training that opened me up to even more yoga. And it got to the point where I was doing so much yoga and my corporate job, and I was barely home. Did not have that balance at all. So I was like, got to the point where I was like, something's got to give, and it can't be the yoga for me. That's not what I'm going to reduce. So I ended up talking to my job. I kind of put the bug in their ear. Could I lessen my role to a little more part time? That wasn't really a thing that people did, at least at my work. So that didn't go over so well. So it got to the point where I had to get comfortable with the idea of quitting. And I loved my corporate job so much. They were so good to me, paid well, all the things you would want and expect from a corporate job. Um, but I loved yoga more. And so everything that I thought I was going to be doing with my life changed the more I fell in love with teaching yoga. And the more I started almost resenting my 9 to 5. I was like, man, this commute does really stink. I'm here, Monday through Friday. I'm in person. Even when I don't have that much work to do, it would be so cool to work when I have to work and not work when I don't want to work. And I had all these ideas, and sometimes I'd get my ideas through, but it was always like this uphill battle to create change. I thought, you know what? I think it's time for me to try and do my own thing with something that I love. So I ended up quitting last August and seeing if I could make full-time teaching work.
That is so interesting. It's so interesting because to hear there's so many people that I interact with who had like a corporate job or a tech job or something like that. And I've never had that. I've always just been a freelancer and an artist and a yoga teacher, and I've never been part of that world. So I'm like, you must hate it in order to quit it and then come live the dream life over here with us artists, right? But actually nobody that I interact with says they hate it. They say something more like it's just not that extreme. It's like
Mhm.
I just loved yoga more. A lot of people really enjoyed their software engineer job or their job in whatever it is. It's really interesting to me.
It's true. Yeah.
Did yoga just feel like a calling?
Yeah. I have always been passionate about helping people. And for a while I was like tricking my mind, like, okay, I'm making like healthy food for people to eat. But when I started having those in-person connections, oh, I'm helping someone real that's right in front of me. That just felt more powerful. And that's what really drew me to it.
That's beautiful. That's amazing. And I think that's one of the reasons why yoga is going to withstand this AI transition because there's something so powerful and connected with being in person and sharing yoga with a person right in front of you that I feel like it will take a long time for AI to catch up.
Completely agree.
Yeah. So, what do you do now? What are you kind of transitioning into the thing that you just said, which is what do you love about what you're doing now and where you're teaching and how you're teaching?
Yeah. So I thought I like had a plan. Like I remember thinking when I quit, okay, I have a plan. Now that I'm actually in it, I realize I didn't really have a plan. I was pretty lucky that when I quit, the timing of when I quit, just a bunch of classes started opening up. I had already started dabbling with a couple different studios and classes opened up and I took them and my schedule went from 2 classes a week to 10 within just a few weeks. So I was like, okay, I'm getting in the groove of things. This is good. And since then, I started trying to be like, okay, where can I bring in more money? I started dabbling with workshops and different events, but those are more difficult than regular classes and harder to come by. So it's been challenging for sure. Obviously, I quit in August and it's now July, and I'm lucky to, have a husband that can help me out with health insurance and things like that. But I'm still definitely not where I want to be financially. But right now, I'm mostly teaching studio classes at multiple studios.
Okay, cool. Well, that gets us into the meat of the conversation that I'm really excited to hear about because I see that the yoga industry needs an upgrade. We're ready for the next iteration of the yoga industry, especially as far as pay goes, because I interact with so many yoga teachers just like you who are doing it. It's happening. You've already quit your dream job. I didn't even know that. It was your dream job since childhood. It is gone. You are teaching yoga. Here we go. But you need a pathway to make it work. And I see that the yoga industry isn't really set up to always support us on a really clear pathway that helps us get to a salaried job with benefits or something like that. So I'm so interested to start to dive into what you see as the difference between your experience in the corporate world and the yoga world. And maybe we can start to see like what was working over there and what the yoga industry could start to borrow and where these gaps are, because I am 100% committed to fixing this. Like,
Yeah,
let's
I love
fix it.
that. And
So,
I think that's why we connect so well is because like when I first thought about quitting, you hear online, you can't just teach yoga and make it. It's never going to happen. It's never going to happen. And I just felt more stubborn than that. I was like, you know what? I'm not going to buy into that. I really want to give it my own shot. So I was like, let's see what we can do. Jury's still out. I'm still not sure, but I know that if it's going to work, it is not going to be easy. I think the first thing that people think of when they quit their corporate job is like, woohoo, no more manager. Like I'm free. I get to be my own boss. That has pros and cons. I was very lucky in my corporate job to have great managers truly my entire time there. And I don't think I realized everything that they were doing for me. Like I appreciated them. And you're with them every day. So there's things that bug you and there's things that they help you with. But I didn't realize how much my manager had been helping me along day to day. Maybe think about this idea again. Maybe go back and fix this. That probably isn't worth your time. Have you thought about this? Like all those little things. I didn't have any of that. Suddenly, it was all up to me, and I made mistakes. I way overbooked myself, which is something that my manager kind of helped me manage. And you lose that outside perspective, and it's a lot easier to get in your head. So teaching yoga, there's definitely not the same level of leadership, guidance, and feedback in this industry as is in so many corporate jobs.
and that's a big deal. And that is why I have a job as a
Yeah.
yoga mentor because it's really needed. There because I've been teaching full time since 2012. And I've loved every minute of it. And I'm super grateful to have a job that every time I show up, it's enjoyable. And I truly feel like I help people. And I wouldn't trade that for the world. And there are so many things that go into being your own boss, like exactly what you're saying, and managing your own business and creating LLCs, all the things that are second nature to me because I've never known this support system you're talking about, which sounds great. And a corporate job, although like I support people through yoga. But this is really interesting because what do you see as the role of that feedback or that mentorship that you had in the corporate world? And why didn't you find it in yoga, or did you look for it, or what are you missing now? Like, what's this missing gap and the thing that was working in corporate America?
Yeah. So I think in corporate America, like some of the highest paying jobs are people leaders. even in a software science company, the highest paying jobs are the directors, where they're not, in the mix of the software and doing all the tech stuff. They are leading people. And I feel like even though I'm teaching yoga at different studios, there's not that leadership piece that is there in corporate jobs. And I've worked at a few studios. I have friends that have worked in studios that have told me their stories. We all talk and everything. The studios I work for are fantastic, but even still, I realized as I started at these different studios, I am expected to come in as an expert, and there is not a ton of feedback from studio owners, more experienced teachers. There really isn't that culture. At some bigger places, I feel it a little bit more, but at smaller places that I really enjoy teaching at, feedback isn't huge. And it I think that all studios could benefit from a bigger culture of feedback, teacher to teacher, studio owner to teachers, because now I'm not a studio owner. I don't really think that's in my path anytime soon, or maybe not even in the future altogether. I see how difficult it is, how much work goes into it. So I don't want to act like I'm the expert on things. But from my perspective as a teacher coming in, I think there's a reason that studio owners opened a studio, right? People are drawn to them, drawn to their classes. There's a reason they are successful enough to open a studio in the first place. And so why not share what makes you successful with your teachers so that they can be successful for themselves and your studio? What do you think of that?
Totally.
Yeah.
Yeah. Because I see that is the culture of yoga, is that the yoga teacher is kind of their own isolated um experience or entity. And I see this all the time, that teachers are expected to market their classes. They are the ones that are expected to bring students and keep students, and they're definitely expected to have all the skills they need to deliver an amazing class. But as somebody who's mentored teachers for many years, of course, if you're learning a new skill, you might not be perfect at it yet. If you're 3 years into teaching, there might be something you could learn from somebody who's done it for 10 plus years, which doesn't feel like rocket science to me, but it's not the way the yoga industry is set up. And I know anybody who's in a corporate job isn't expected, or I would love to know your experience because I've never had
Uh-huh.
a corporate job, but it seems that they're invested in your growth and they're invested in you being the best you can be. So there's support systems built into their business model that have you grow like a person who's highly paid, and they're mostly managing people, right? What's your experience there?
Yeah. So while it feels like in the yoga industry, this is sort of under the umbrella of trust and respect, but coming in as such a new teacher, I don't feel like I have earned or am ready for the level of trust that studio owners give you as an independent contractor. Like, of course, people have been teaching for a long time. I understand they don't want to be told how to run their class, what to do, but I think new teachers could really benefit from that guidance. And maybe some of it is fear-based because you get a corporate job and corporate companies are so ready to invest in you because you don't have two, three other jobs in the same industry at competitive places. So I think that's an aspect that probably holds people back. Like, oh, if I invest in these teachers and they're taking all of that good stuff to other places, and other places are benefiting from what I'm investing in my teachers, I can see how that would be a problem. Now, I haven't been around all that much, but it's really felt like no two studios that I've come across have been the same. Like different style of classes, different clientele. So I don't know if that fear is like super well founded. I think studios would still benefit more from offering support and feedback regularly, teacher to teacher, studio owner to teachers, just all around. Yeah, I think that's a key difference between the corporate world and the yoga industry. The corporate, you're working at one place. Yes, now more than ever, people are leaving a lot faster and taking that knowledge probably to other companies, but still seems worth it to them at the end of the day.
It I did I had this job that was really different in the yoga industry that has me kind of think about this and be so curious about what was helpful to you in the corporate world. And in that job, there was an opportunity for every teacher to teach 10 to 15 classes a week. So we did have a lot of time that we could spend at their studio, and we were paid per head. And they really wanted our classes to be full, and they wanted our classes to be great, and they wanted yoga students to come back, and they wanted yoga students to love the brand. And for that reason, we had quarterly trainings that we were required to go to. And we also had mentors come to our class and give us feedback, and we were paid for that. And the result of that is I got way better. I felt pretty committed to that studio because they gave me so much opportunity, and they cared about me, and they invested in me, and the feedback that I got from my mentors was amazing. And they were doing this to a lot of really seasoned teachers. Like a lot of us weren't even new teachers. They were coming and saying, here's how you could be even better, and the brand could be even better, and the students' experience could be elevated more than you've learned to elevate it. And I saw so much value in that. And I know there's so many businesses that operate well. Like arguably the studio was operating well enough to have, like, I don't know what they had, 18 studios all across the country. So that means their business practices were going somewhat well. And it seems as though things in corporate America, those businesses are profiting because they're invested in a brand or a business or the team. They care about the team. I know that there's like interpersonal relationships are always tricky, but they're trying to manage a team and keep a team together. And then yoga is so tricky because we're not painters painting alone in isolation and then offering up our art. We are working in community, and I think it would be beneficial if we were treated as a team. We are paid as contractors most of the time, but what if we were a team? And like you're saying, somebody who's really great, like a yoga studio owner, what if they were trying to have the kind of leadership that would offer up, like, here's what I've learned. Here's why I even opened this studio. This is what I want people to leave this studio having. And I just don't see that as much. So I know that was a ton, but what's your thought process around leadership and team management in relation to corporate America and then your experience in yoga?
Yeah, so the studio that you were talking about that did train you and it went really well, that seems like a studio that didn't have that fear of like, okay, I'm going to train them and they're going to take it elsewhere. And I think that makes a lot of sense and it worked really well for them. I have seen some studios have more guidelines than other, but maybe it's more of a written kind of guideline. I mean, which is fine, but nothing's as good as doing something and getting feedback from it. So that is one change that I would really like to see. I know at all the studios I teach at, we are constantly encouraged to take each other's classes, but then that's where it ends. I would love to see the encouragement to take each other's classes, sit down, talk about the classes, what went really well, where does this teacher shine? Not only is it where do we improve as teachers, that's helpful, but so is knowing what you're good at so you can really lean into that. So it's both. What's going well for these teachers and what are their opportunities to grow?
Oh, absolutely. Like I've seen that so many times that showing people their superpowers is just as helpful as showing what they could work on. Did you have any peer-to-peer feedback when you were working in a team in corporate America?
I will say my team in corporate America felt like much more than any team I've been a part of in the yoga industry. Like we truly have a common goal. We are genuinely working with each other on that common goal. Even if I have like a super small question about something, there's 10 people I could have gone to at any time. I don't feel that same teamwork in that sense. Yes, we are friendly to each other. Yes, we attend each other's classes, but I just feel like that right now is where it ends.
What do you think would be different if there was the same kind of teamwork that you had in your food science job in your yoga teaching jobs?
Yeah, so the same thing. Hopefully you are working somewhere because you care about the mission, you resonate with some aspect of it, whether it's a corporate job or a yoga studio. I care as much about the studios that I'm working at as I did for the corporate company that I was working for. And I want to see the studio itself be successful. I am not just working at the studio for myself. It's because I resonate with the owner and what they stand for and the way that they help people and what the studio has to offer people. And if there was more teamwork among those of us working at the studio, we could, have a little bit more consistency in what we offer. Obviously, you don't want every teacher to be the same. That's why you hire different people to give different offerings. But if you are a member showing up one day to a heated flow and it's very slower pace, more breath focused, okay, and then you show up the next day to a heated flow and it's intense, fast, hotter than the other one. Like, is that a problem for students? I'm not sure, but I, as a teacher at a studio, you want to fit into a certain degree. And you don't want to be like the sore thumb that's offering, something so much slower than everyone else or so much faster than everyone else or more advanced, more beginner. You want to kind of find your own unique part of the team. But if you're not sure what that looks like and the team isn't cohesive, then it's hard to find your place within what should be a community.
Yeah, I think there's this gap because we are putting things on the schedule, like you're mentioning, that are all called the same thing, heated flow. But then if you don't have that much leadership in the community and you don't have people training on what is heated flow, instead, you get all this diversity, which it's this gap because we're not painters. We don't want Jackson Pollock to be the same as Monet. We don't expect those to be the same because underneath, when you go to the museum, it says Jackson Pollock. And you're like, okay, that's going to be Jackson Pollock. But there's this gap because we're being treated like you're your own isolated entity, but you also have this class on the schedule that's the same as this other teacher, but we're not going to try to, I think there's this like, we want to be a community and we kind of need some leadership, but we're going to treat you all like you're totally free and autonomous, which I personally love to be free and autonomous. That's one of my favorite things about being a business owner. But it is important what you're saying from like years of mentoring um, yoga studio owners. I always talk about that consistency, because if you don't have that consistency, they can't trust the studio or the community to deliver if you're hungry for that Marissa's powerful heated thing and I'm going to get really sweaty, and then you go to some other teacher and you don't, it's really upsetting and you might not come back to the studio. So it's really important business wise. Maybe you just call this Marissa's class, Katie's class, Sam's class. That might be better, but there's a
Right.
gap.
Yeah. Like, I don't think students differentiate, power flow with Maryssa versus power flow with Tara. Like, I'm not a celebrity. I'm not even well known in the community. So yeah, I don't know. I don't know what you do.
There's something important that you're kind of pointing to. There's leadership needed. A vision is needed to carry a team to that vision. Do you think that that's applicable to yoga? Do you wish there was more of that?
Yeah, I always like now I try before I teach anywhere. I always try to take a few classes because how else am I gonna know what to do? Like I am not at the point where I'm ready to show up at any studio with my own isolated class, and I don't think I'll ever be there because I want to fit in within the studio. So if there was some kind of orientation beyond here's how you turn on the lights, I think that would go a really, really long way for a lot of teachers, especially those of us in the beginning of our yoga teaching careers.
And really, what happened in the beginning of your food science career? They didn't say go for it, right?
Oh my
They gave
gosh,
you some
no.
training, right?
Yeah, it was step by step, and truly the training never ended. Like they would pay for me to go and train on this thing on the other side of the country, maybe people skills, maybe it's science skills. They consistently invested in training, and it's so funny that that's not really in the yoga industry because who more than yoga teachers say like we're constantly learning, our yoga is never done, we always have more to learn, but it feels completely up to the individual to learn that when there's a wealth of resources within just a studio of teachers.
Yeah, I think that's the really unfortunate thing, because there are mentors and trainings and ways to keep learning, and we continue to learn on our own accord and on our own dime, but I think it's a missed opportunity, and it's something that hurts yoga studio businesses, that kind of growth isn't supported inside the yoga studio. Because then you also are if the teachers are doing their own isolated training and learning their own thing, then of course one person's hot flow is very different than somebody else's hot flow because they were trained somewhere else. And that kind of lack of consistency for a business is hard, because now the students are uh, loyal to the teacher. They're not loyal to the community that was created in a yoga studio.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Yeah, and it could be as simple as like, maybe once a quarter or even once a year would be better than nothing of like, hey, team at the studio, we are going to take Kevin's class together, whoever can make it. And at the end, we're going to do feedback as a group, talk about what went well, what didn't go well. The teacher is prepared. They know that that's going to happen. And it opens up like a world of discussion around not just someone as a teacher, but also how it fits into the studio space.
Yeah, absolutely.
Small
So,
thing that could go a long way.
and that's what I experienced, and it was great. It
Yeah.
was really helpful. It also built community among the teachers. So on a positive, I want to go back to what is lacking in a 200-hour teacher training. But before we go back into that mode, what do you do? Since you are in this world teaching in yoga studios and you don't have this support, what have you done to kind of fill in that for yourself?
Yeah, so luckily there's a lot of books out there. So I think that's a great way to think about things differently, learn more things. I would say books have probably been one of the things that's helped me the most, along with taking a variety of classes with a variety of teachers and learning from them what you would maybe do similar to them, what you would do differently is another huge way that I continue to learn. And then investing in additional trainings has also helped me a lot.
Yeah, amazing. Are there any books that you would recommend to anybody who's listening?
Yes, right now I'm reading, The Heart of Yoga. Let
Mm-hmm.
me look up who's it by.
I can also link it in the show notes. The Heart of Yoga, we can link it in the show notes. What are you getting out of that you like?
Yes, The Heart of Yoga. Who's it by? Oh yeah, Desi Kachar. Heart of Yoga, Desi Kachar. This book is really about developing your personal practice, and it's made me realize how personal yoga is and why something might work really well for one person, whether it's a pose or a kind of breath or a sequence may not work for someone else, and how even changing something as small as your gaze or your breath can completely change how something feels in a person. It really gets down to the individuality of yoga and how you can offer the same class to a room full of people and everyone can have their own unique experience from it, which is something I hadn't really considered before. Like I'm offering this class, everyone's going to be in triangle pose, they're all going to be feeling the same way. It's just not the case. And if I wasn't reading, I wouldn't be able to have that nuance in my teaching now.
Mm, that's so important. That's, yeah, and such a different lens to teach through. And what I've found is it creates more transformation for the students when you teach through that lens.
Yeah.
So that's awesome. Noted. I'll put that book in the show notes because I bet other people would really benefit from it if they haven't been reading it yet. Okay, so as a new teacher, what have you experienced is still missing after a 200-hour teacher training compared to the structure from your initial training as a food scientist?
Yeah, I would say the problem with 200-hour yoga teacher trainings is that they end after 200 hours.
Right.
They're done. You get off the bus and you are on your own. I luckily I've been able to keep in touch with my 200-hour trainers, but they're also very busy yoga teachers trying to make a living for themselves. And with that comes the next round of 200-hour students, and then they're occupied with them. So it's tough to keep that same level of consistency in training, that ongoing training with the 200-hour structure. I would say that is the biggest problem, is that it's 200 hours and then it's done.
200 hours is not long enough to become what you're expected to be. What you were saying before, where you're expected to be the expert that doesn't need any feedback and doesn't need any mentorship and doesn't need any support. Here's your class on the schedule. Go for it. But you only had 200 hours of training.
Yeah, certainly. And I understand why the Yoga Alliance requires additional trainings every so often, because it really is 200 hours and then you're on your own unless you take it upon yourself to do more trainings. But even then, you're kind of mixing and matching different lineages and concepts and trying to put that all together yourself without a foundational leader or trusted support. It's very much training and also on your own.
Yeah, it's not replicated other places. That's why I'm so interested in what worked well in corporate America, or how are other industries managing their businesses and their communities, because what's happening mostly in the yoga industry, I don't think works super, super well. Um, it seems like if you get a job in corporate America, there's leadership and a vision, and you go forward in that leadership and that vision. And a lot of industries are regulated, or there's a definition of what is happening. And yoga, in so many ways, is an art form, which is lovely, but it's so diverse, and there's so many different possibilities, like you just mentioned. And like in it, from a spiritual standpoint, there's a lot of ancient wisdom that you could find in a text that says it's really important to find one guru or spiritual leader, which is distinct from just a flow teacher in America, but one really, 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 really wise person. And they say, follow just the one, just only that one for a sustained amount of time. And yoga teachers, like you're mentioning, are offered this, try this, go to Bali, do this other training. And so there's just this, like, your training is all over the place.
Yeah, yeah, which is different. I mean, in the corporate world, you kind of do have that constant, solid structure, unless you're at like a very high turnover place. But, you know, the 8 years I was at my corporate job, we had the same director of our team. And he's still there now. If I had stayed, 9, 10 years, like he would still be there. That's a long time to be under someone's leadership. And he accomplished so much in that time for our team and for each of us. And that was his main job, was to lead us as a team. And yeah, it's just something that doesn't exist, like we talked about. And I think with yoga, it being an art form is very interesting as well, because there's almost this idea of, okay, you have it or you don't. You have the it factor or you don't. And I think that couldn't be further than the truth. I think anyone that has a passion for yoga can learn skills to be incredible. And, yes, is personality part of it? Yeah, but you can learn communication skills and people skills. I think it can all be learned if we had the structure beyond the 200 hours to have support.
Yeah. What a corner that we're putting people in, to say, here's 200 hours of training. Now go be a superstar.
Yeah.
Because I see teachers who are confusing the fool out of their students. They're not coming back. They're like, they feel awkward at the end of class. And I'm like, you literally are queuing out of order. Just queue in this order. Okay. And that's it. That's all they needed. And they're passionate about yoga and they have so much to offer. And they were just queuing out of order. And it's a
Yeah,
skill set that you can learn.
exactly. And I was lucky that I was able to get a job right after my 200-hour, but I know people who didn't get a job right after. And then the more time that passes, I mean, how difficult is that to have your 200-hour end and then, months before you can find a job and you have that gap. It's just a really tough setup for success.
Yeah. I think I love this conversation. I think it's so important that we start to think about what kind of leadership is needed, because I do think more leadership is needed, more vision is needed. This is how people build businesses that work, that support their people, that are sustainable. And then this is also how people like you build up all the skill sets that you need to effectively transition from your dream job into this new love of yoga. So it's supportive all around if there's more leadership and more vision. Yeah. I want to shift into money here at the tail end and see what we can uncover about money. So, what are your beliefs and thoughts around money and being paid for work? Because you did take a pay cut to move into yoga. So, what are your thought processes around that?
Yeah, I took a huge pay cut going from corporate to teaching yoga full time with what I'm doing right now, almost a year in. It is still a huge gap with what I was making and what I'm making now. And I think it's gotten me a little confused, if I'm honest. Like, why can someone make a living as a food scientist, as a nurse, as an accountant, as all of the many jobs that we have, but not a yoga teacher? Why? Why is that the stigma? And why am I finding out that like that might be true? I don't, it doesn't make sense to me. I'm like, it's a job. I'm helping people. Can't make it work financially, which is such a bummer because if you are a nurse or these traditional types of jobs that we have, you can dedicate your entire career to being a nurse, being an accountant, being a consultant, whatever, and make enough money. But for some reason, yoga teachers have to split their careers in two and three to make ends meet, which dilutes our ability to really dive into this career and focus on it and help people the way that we want to help people and give our best. Like so many yoga teachers I know, their career is split in halves and thirds, even more. And it's I don't I don't know why it has to be like that.
That is my whole mission right now, is to fix it. I'm here to fix it because like a big question is, does what a nurse does or an accountant or a food scientist, is the value they provide to people more than the value of a yoga teacher? And like, do you feel like it's more valuable to be a food scientist than it is to be a yoga teacher?
If I did, I would still be a food scientist.
Right.
Yeah.
Because money is a representation of value. It'd be cool if we were still in a gift economy, and I'm sure those were great, but that's not where we live. We don't live in a gift economy. So we have money, and money represents value. If you do something and you don't ask for any money, you're saying this doesn't have value, which is what yoga teachers have been saying for about 100 years. Maybe not on purpose, but that is what is said when you say, I'm not in it for the money. It inherently translates to this doesn't have value. And then if it doesn't have value, you can't spend all of your time doing it. And you have to split your career in halves and thirds and spend less time doing the thing because it's just a hobby. But don't you see value being created by yoga teachers? Don't you think it's just as good as being a nurse or a farmer or you know, right?
Yeah, anything. 100%. And it's so interesting too because yoga becomes such an integral part of people's daily lives. Like a lot of people, 5 days a week, they go to work and they go to yoga or whatever fitness class. Like a huge bulk of people's time is spent in these classes. And yet, it's easy and accepted to go to dinner for an hour and spend $100, but $25 for yoga class is like, whoa, whoa, whoa. Or, 200 a month membership is like, hang on, when you can easily spend that in one night on the town. You know what I mean? So it's so interesting when you think about where people spend their time, how much time they spend there. You have only a few hours in a day if you work full time, and you're choosing to spend part of that in a yoga studio. That must mean something to you.
Yeah. I have a little toddler and I will leave the house and have somebody else take care of her. And it's a big ordeal to go to a yoga class in the evening right before bedtime. That's a huge hit on the day.
Mhm,
That means
mhm.
it's extremely valuable. There's so many things that I put at stake to get to that 6 p.m. yoga class, you know? And I'll tell you right now, I'm not the only mom that does that. There's
Yeah.
people all across the country who find yoga to be really valuable. And I think life changing, like people don't have migraines anymore that had migraines. People get rid of back pain. People overcome grief. The number of times that I've heard somebody say, I was just in the worst place of my life. I was at my lowest low. I was overcoming a loss. And the thing that got me through was yoga. I've heard that so many times, and there's so many other versions of experiencing the joys of life or experiencing community. I hear people say the only time I talk to people outside of work is here at the yoga studio. It's really undeniable that yoga is valuable to society.
Mhm, mhm. Yeah, so it makes you wonder, why isn't the money flowing in the way that we think that would meet the value? Is it because there's too many of us? There's too many studios and you have to stay competitive? What are your thoughts?
Well, I think that yoga studios are not set up with a business model that is that sustainable. They're relying on new, fresh talent because one of the best ways they've figured out how to make money is teacher training. So we're doing teacher training, teacher training, teacher training, and pumping out all these new yoga teachers. And then yoga studios can build their whole business model around paying new entry level workers a really low rate, which as a new yoga teacher, of course, you're like, I'll take anything. I just want to get my foot in the door. And that's the way when you're new to any industry, you will say, yes, I don't expect my salary to be the same as my peer who's been working in the industry for 15 years. Of course, I'll take an entry level job. Like I'll start as the receptionist. Of course, that's the way that that operates. But in the yoga industry, the big missing is there's no ladder up because there's so
Yes.
many new yoga teachers that they can continue to build their business model on paying yoga teachers a lower rate. And then since there's no ladder up and they're not really investing in having really seasoned teachers or experts working in their studio, they can't ask for premium rates because it's so unregulated that you don't know if the yoga class is going to be good or not good. Of course, there's yoga studios that are an exception, and you know that when you go there, it's going to be amazing and it's going to be what you need. But often, it is a new person who's teaching, and they might get most of it right, and you might leave and say, that was great. But you might not leave and say, I got my mind blown and everything changed because I took that class. You might, but not consistently. And so
Mhm.
that's why private yoga can pay so much more because that's probably a premium provider, right?
Yeah.
And then also, I think a huge thing that's one of the biggest problems ever. Well, I think it's a twofold problem. One, you have to provide a lot of value. And sometimes to provide a lot of value, you need more leadership, you need more training. And there's so many teachers like you who probably already are providing a lot of value and are hungry to provide a lot of value. You just hinge your whole life on providing a lot of value. So, of course, you want all the tools in your toolkit to provide the best value ever. And I would say that's 99% of every yoga teacher I know. we're helpers. We want to be the best we possibly can be, but we don't have the tools in the toolkit. So I see yoga teachers who are 5 years in doing this thing that's like a really basic mistake that you could easily help, but they never were told to not make that mistake in the way they're using lighting or the way that they're using anatomy or whatever. And so step one, you have to provide a lot of value. And that's often some kind of training or reading a lot of books or something. And then the second thing that I think we're missing in a really big way is explaining the value. Because in the yoga industry, we do a lot of, I'm not here for the money, donation based, free yoga in the park, blah, 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 blah. And there's some signal that we're sending to yoga practitioners that you shouldn't pay for yoga. And that comes from a misunderstanding of the way monks operate in a totally different culture than us, which is that the leader of a church or monks or some kind of spiritual person would be taken care of by the community, and they would be provided a roof over the head and all the resources that they need. But they would never be scraping by like so many yoga teachers are. They weren't stressed about resources. They were provided by the community because they provided so much value. And so, of course, the community says, oh, you need more of this. Here you go. But our society is not set up to ensure that somebody who teaches 3 yoga classes a week at a studio to check in on that person and say, how's your rent going? You know,
Right.
Is your mortgage paid? Do you need more vegetables? Nobody's used to that. We use money, which is the representation of value, and that is the society that we live in. Would I like to go back to a gift economy? Maybe, but it's not the world we live in, right? And
It's
that feels
not.
like more of an uphill battle than explaining to people that this is valuable and then asking for that. So that's my, clearly I have a huge opinion. What are your responses to that?
No, I'm glad that you talked about it because you have a lot more insight and a lot more experience and just a lot more time observing all of this. And I think it is a big problem to try and offer something highly accessible in a capitalist economy. So it's tough. Yeah, because I can sense, I'm open about my journey with my yoga students. Hey, I quit my job. Some of them have been with me for all 3 years from when I started while I was still in corporate to thinking about it to now. And I do sense them wanting to help me and support me. But the way I see a lot of them try to do it is by trying to find me more work, which I don't always have the bandwidth for. And so I do feel like them wanting to help. I really do, but they just can't. It's not their job to worry about that anyways. Like we are all on our own out here, whether you work a corporate job to get by, whether you throw that away and decide to become a yoga teacher and struggle to get by. We're all on our own. We all have to make it work. That's how we're set up as a society.
That's so interesting, right? Because these people would buy you a house and buy all your groceries if they could, right? It's not a lack of the emotion that happened in the gift economy or the emotion that happened when monks were asking for alms. There's no lack of that. It's just not our setup. So
Right.
I've had this experience when I explained the value to a yoga teacher mentee or a private yoga student, and they experience that value, they happily give me kind of a higher rate, right?
Mm-hmm.
And that rate provides the roof over my head and the groceries and all the things that I need to help my family and to help myself. And that is a clear pathway. But when you're teaching at a studio and you get a certain rate and they're like, we want to help you, Maryssa, but like, how are we supposed to do that? It's not a clear path, and it's not a lack of you providing something valuable, and it's not a lack of them being unwilling to pay for it. The system is not set up to support you.
Agree, 100%. And it also ties back to another reason why teachers want their studios to do well. Because if a studio is doing well, then we as teachers can do better.
Yeah. And I think if the studios were set up to offer a premium, highly valuable, like, not to say that there's not amazing yoga teachers that are blowing people's minds and changing their lives for $30 a class. Like, I know there's tons of those out there.
Mm-hmm.
But as an industry, if we were set up to train and have that be a premium product and explain it as like, this is as valuable as the $200 you're about to spend on that Airbnb. This is as valuable as going to a therapy session. This is different, but as valuable as a dinner out. It's just as fun. Then people would happily pay for it, because all the people who are going to those yoga classes just spent $150 on dinner the night before.
Yeah. Yeah. And you know, what's funny is I'm seeing, like, tell me if you're seeing this too, is I get the sense that if you want to charge a little bit more for a yoga class than a studio rate, like, you better have a little cup of coffee at the end, or like a little goodie bag, a little something extra. It's not the yoga that you're paying for. It's now this like breakfast experience, social
Dang.
hour thing. You see that happening?
I guess I do, but I hadn't thought of it that way. So thanks for highlighting that, because that's again saying yoga's not that valuable. Like,
Yeah.
yoga, whatever. And then you're going to get a coffee afterward. Like, the coffee is not the point. Like, you can go to a coffee shop. There's
Yes.
so many. It is highly
Hmm.
accessible to get to a coffee shop.
Yeah. It feels like we're moving towards this, like, yoga and something else is what's going to get people to pay a higher price. And I don't think it's just yoga. I think Pilates deals with that too, and other fitness modalities, but it's interesting.
That is interesting. I mean, I do know that a lot of yoga teachers do get paid enough to support themselves and support their best lives,
Oh, that's
including me.
good.
Yeah. I mean, I'm here to say it's possible. I've been doing it since 2012. I would never do anything different. It's the best. And I think what the difference, I just, it'd be cool if the yoga studios, I do know there's some people doing really great work to help yoga studios develop better business practices and become like more supportive institutions. But that's not my work in the world. I see a lot of people building their own personal brands and then being able to explain their unique value, which is, I think, what you're getting at. It's like, it's not just a flow class, it's flow and coffee. But there's a much better version of that. That is, for instance, if you have a dance background and you want to help people move well in their bodies with a lot of freedom, and you're incorporating that dance training into your yoga offering, and you're offering something like that, then it's like, this is a 6-month program that helps you go from uncomfortable in your body to feeling free in the world. People pay
Mm.
for that, as opposed to flow class on Wednesday morning, which just, we don't know what that means. That could be exactly what I just described, but we don't know.
Yeah, yeah. So maybe it's not necessarily, the solution might not be yoga and something, but yoga for something and being clear on what that is.
Exactly. And that's what people, when it provides some kind of transformation, then people will pay for that. Like,
Mhm.
oh, you'll get rid of my migraines? Yeah, I'm going to pay for that. So, has it, what have you gained from your pay cut? Like getting to be in yoga as opposed to your corporate job, what's better? What are
Oh,
the
well,
parts that are better?
yeah, so much is better. I haven't gone back for a reason, right? I'm still here trying to make this work for a reason. I mean, first of all, the biggest thing is the flexibility in your days. I just really was battling with, why do I have to be at work when I don't have work to do and I'm sitting here like da da da. Some days you work 12 hours, you're super busy. Other days, okay, you still have to go and like sit there. But now I work when I need to work. I don't work when I don't have to work, and I can plan my days around my energy. Like I do my best work at 6 a.m. That doesn't really fit into a corporate job, but now I can plan my classes at 6 a.m., do my thing. That flexibility is huge. Being able to like do, chores, whatever, errands, enjoyment time in the day is great. Yes. Is it always 100% easy to show up to my 5:30 p.m. class when it's a beautiful day outside? Not really, but it's way better than spending the entire day in the office. So for me, the flexibility of it, the people that I get to see on a day-to-day basis, don't get me wrong, my coworkers were amazing, but getting to interact with so many different kinds of people all the time is so fun. And when I'm teaching, it feels like no, it feels like time goes by so fast. I'm never looking at the clock like, when is this class done? I'm so in the moment, so present, and that's how I want work to feel. I never thought, and I remember telling my friends this, I was like, did you know you can go to work and feel better after? Because I had always gone to work and felt worse after. But then I was having a bad day and I went and taught my yoga class and I felt better after. I was like, is this real?
I
there's
love
there's
that.
a
Ding,
lot of
ding, ding.
benefits.
I love
Yeah.
that. That is so, and that's a ding highlight. Spread that around the world. I think you should say that to more people because the more people that are happy or content or feel like they're helping people, the better.
Yeah. I wish we could all have jobs where you're working and you're not looking at the clock and time's flying. You're like, how is it already over? It's a dream. It's a
Well,
dream.
that has been my experience since 2012, and it is why I do what I do because
Yeah.
it's the best. It's the
Yeah.
best. What, just kind of like wrapping up questions, what do you feel like your future of work is looking like? What do you hope to make happen? What's the vision for the future?
Yes. Love this question. So I am currently doing the studio thing, working at multiple studios, getting as many classes in as I can. But I've recently started doing a few more private events. I've done a couple workshops, which are great, and they bring in extra money, but I have been so enjoying doing things like bachelorette parties, birthday parties. I would really love to lean into private events a lot more. I love bringing yoga into celebrations and having it be a way for people to come together, especially as like we see some bachelorettes now leaning more into like wellness weekends and things like that. I think it could be a very good fit. People that enjoy yoga want their community, their friends and family to share that with them. So I'm still playing around with where my career could go and trying these different things. But out of everything I've tried, private events have just been so fun for me. So I think that's what I'm going to try to lean into a little bit more as a way to boost my income and enjoy what I do.
Love that. That is so fun. And I can hear it in your voice that you're excited about it, which is like the ticket to saying, hey, y'all, this is worth paying my bills for. bachelorettes, please provide enough for me to have a sustainable career. Like, of course, that's a platform for a sustainable career. So that's really exciting. That sounds super fun. I love it. Cool. Well, I am so grateful to have this conversation and to kind of go through and uncover things. And thanks for humoring me with my strong opinions. But I think it's really valuable to have the perspective of somebody who's really going through it and experiencing the transition right now, and also somebody like you who's it's happening. You're doing it. You have a vision for the future. It's happening. So I really appreciate this, and thanks for all your thoughts. Do you have any closing thoughts, closing inspirations, closing inquiries for the audience to ponder?
Well, thank you so much, Tara. This has been really fun, and it is really inspiring to see someone like you on the other side of it, accomplish so much, built a life that they are proud of and they can sustain. And I am just happy to be here to share the messy middle of it all. So thank you for giving me the opportunity. And yeah, that's it from me.
Cool. Well, thank you. Thank you.